Hey everyone, it's your buddy back again with another exciting fanfic, which is what if Sasuke returned after 7 years. Only to find Sakura married. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. Do you want to know what's changed? Naruto asked excitedly, walking next to his returned friend. Sasuke replied, looking between the two sides of the road at the shops. Some he recognized from his genin days and others he didn't. How long had he been gone? 3 years? No, it was longer than that. 7 years, Naruto began, seeing Sasuke's pensive face. 7 years is a long time, Sasuke. Yeah, Sasuke nodded, watching in bitter amusement at the small family sitting down to eat in a nearby restaurant. When he was younger, he wanted that. He wanted a family, somebody to love him and children to live on after him. That was his fantasy. I guess some things just aren't meant to happen, Sasuke thought sadly as the Jonin father of the family sat down next to his pregnant wife. They looked so happy, innocent of the ex-traitor of Konoha walking down the street as if nothing had ever happened. Well, Kakashi-sensei hasn't really changed, Naruto laughed. He still reads his books and well. Oh, you haven't really met them, but Yamato Taiko, he's pretty cool, and Sai, he's a bastard just like you. And do you ever come up for air? Sasuke wondered, listening in annoyance to his friend. Why you? Naruto growled. I just thought you wanted to know what's different around here. Sasuke shrugged as he walked past Naruto. At least he hadn't been forced to come back to the village like so many thought would happen. No, he came back of his own free will, not dragged by Naruto, Kakashi, or Sakura. Sakura. He hadn't even seen her when he came back. Where was she? You're wondering about her, huh? Naruto quietly asked, watching Sasuke's traveling eyes wander between stores and kissing couples. No. They continued to walk past the main street of town and down to a row of cozy homes. Liar. Naruto sighed. Well, she's kind of. Sakura. Sakura. A voice shouted, from behind them. Sasuke turned around to see Naruto's sad and yet smiling face looking towards the ground. The masculine voice continued to call as a dark figure ran into one of the opened gates. Sasuke twisted his head to look beyond Naruto and saw a dark raven-haired shinobi standing in the front garden, panting and eyeing a woman standing on the house's porch. He walked past Naruto and saw the familiar shade of pink he had missed. Sakura, he thought. Sakura. The dark-haired shinobi called. Sai. Sakura shouted, turning around swiftly. She jumped down the steps of the porch and ran into Sai's open arms, smiling and laughing. Sasuke's breath hitched, watching Sai lift Sakura and twirl her around in the air. The dark-haired boy buried his face into her collarbone, brushing his nose over her skin. I missed you, Sai, Sakura exclaimed, wrapping her arms around his neck and pressing his body closer to hers. Sasuke watched Sai pull his face from Sakura's neck and crash his lips on hers. His heart cringed at watching his former teammate. Sakura warmly accepted the kiss and smiled into Sai's mouth. The two stumbled backwards until Sai tripped. He fell back on the ground with Sakura on top of him. Sasuke watched the two fall and narrowed his eyes when Sai's arms dragged lower on Sakura's back, circling and tightening their hold around her waist. Naruto. What? Well, Sakura kind of moved on, Naruto sheepishly replied, watching in contentment as the couple cuddled on the ground, oblivious to the eyes watching them. Moved on? Sasuke questioned. He watched in slight sadness as Sakura and Sai broke their kiss. Sakura wrapped her arms around the ninja and buried her face into his neck. Sasuke continued to gaze at the two obvious lovers and longed to be the one in Sakura's embrace, the one to be kissed and loved once again by her. That's Sai, Naruto started, our teammate and Sakura's husband. Husband. Sasuke stammered, ripping his eyes from the couple to Naruto's bright blue eyes. He thought that maybe they were going out, dating, but married. How could she be married? Yeah, Naruto gave a small laugh and continued, Sasuke, they have a. He missed you too, Sai. Sakura's sweet voice broke through Naruto's awkward sentence as Sasuke turned back around to face the married couple. I want to see him. Sai smiled, letting Sakura rise from him and watching her run to the porch. The artist sat up on the ground and leaned back on his arms, watching his wife coo over a bassinet. Sai's smile widened when she lifted a small bundle from the light sky blue bassinet and grinned over at him. Sasuke watched Sakura slowly descend the stairs and quickly walk over to Sai's position on the ground, softly smiling and looking down with love at the small bundle. Sai excitedly took the child from his wife's arms and cradled the baby against his chest, craning his neck down to give his son a small kiss on the head. The boy's soft fine black hair tickled his face while his eyes scrunched closed. Sakura stood back and watched the ninja brush his nose against his son's face, gently embracing the child. She has a son, Sasuke, Naruto cut in. A son? Sasuke questioned. No, that couldn't be. He was only gone for 7 years. Sasuke's conscience finished for him. 7 years is a long time, his thoughts echoed Naruto's first words. He still couldn't believe it. Sakura Haruno. His Sakura, the Sakura that loved and begged him not to leave 7 years ago, now was married to another man and had a child. I see why she didn't come to see me. His thoughts trailed, thinking back to how happy she looked when she saw Sai. What did he expect her to do? Did he really think she would just wait around until he came back? She was ready to love him 7 years ago and he wasn't. He was ready now, 7 years later, but he was too late. He's really cute, Sasuke, Naruto tried to amend. Somehow, Naruto thought he had to apologize for Sakura falling in love with another man. At first, the initial reaction to Sai and Sakura was just like Sasuke's, absolute shock and slight horror. Usually Sakura was punching or hitting Sai for calling her ugly and hag, but one day, it seemed to Naruto, she stopped. He didn't call her hag and she didn't hit him. Naruto thought Sai had finally caught on to the cause and effect relationship his nicknames had. Call Sakura ugly and you get the beating of a lifetime. But that wasn't it. Apparently, even though no one but Naruto was really surprised, Sai had always loved Sakura. He didn't know the exact words to describe the feeling, but it was there. In his heart, Naruto still remembered the rest of the original squad's reactions. Well, that's no surprise, Ino laughed. Yeah, I'm happy for them, Ten agreed. I think that they are good for each other, Hinata stammered. I guess I should lend him one of my novels, Kakashi snickered with Yamato. Don't worry, Jiraiya yelled, Sai can have my newest one. I think it's the best yet. Troublesome, Shikamaru dragged, what's the big deal? Sakura-san, Lee shouted, my youthful flower has found someone else. I am happy to hear this, even if Sai is my new competition. She's happy, Neji stated, that's all that matters. Naruto remembered Neji's words mostly. It didn't matter to him that she had chosen Sai, but as long as that bastard didn't hurt her like Sasuke had, then he was okay with it. Sai's a good man, Sasuke, Naruto defended through clenched teeth, even though the man still called him dickless. Oh, Sasuke murmured. Seiha, Naruto said. What? Sasuke turned around to look at Naruto's pensive face. That's his name, Naruto continued, referring to Sakura's son, Seiha. I see, Sasuke softly replied. Naruto, let's go. Right, the blonde ninja responded, walking down the path past Sakura and Sai's home, listening to Sasuke's faint footsteps behind him. I'm sorry, Sasuke, Naruto thought, but you're too late. Ah, Sakura has a child. With Sai no less. I love Sai and I have no idea why. Sasuke, Naruto whispered, are you still thinking about her? Sasuke didn't respond. Answer or no answer, Naruto could tell. She was the reason he came back, she was the one he wanted to love. But he was 7 years too late. Naruto, Sasuke's low voice started, does she love him? Why was he asking? He didn't know. Actually, he did know. At least, he knew the answer. She did love him. Sakura wasn't the person to whittle her time away with needless romances. If that was the case, she wouldn't have begged him to stay all those years ago. Yeah, she does, Naruto whispered back. Okay, Sasuke replied. You love her, don't you? Naruto sighed, walking towards his home. Again, Sasuke didn't answer. What good was it to admit something like that? Sakura had moved on, so, what was the point? Telling Naruto he loved her wasn't going to change anything. It doesn't matter anymore, Sasuke said. Nothing matters anymore, he thought. I'm sorry, Sasuke. Naruto stopped behind his friend, he didn't know why. Why? I don't know, Naruto softly laughed. A pregnant silence engulfed them. Naruto didn't know what to say and neither did Sasuke. What could either of them say? Things had changed. Sasuke had his chance and he blew it. Naruto watched the icy coldness in Sasuke's eyes flicker between pain and confusion. Quote, comma, dot, dot. I'm going home, Sasuke said, breaking the silence. Naruto nodded and watched the last Uchiha turn his back, hunched with his fists in his pockets. Bye, Naruto responded, watching Sasuke's shadow disappear into the night. The soft breeze gave him tremors as he stared at the spot where Sasuke had just stood. He wasn't supposed to act this way, Naruto thought. Naruto couldn't understand the Uchiha. Never had Sasuke shown any sort of feelings toward Sakura and now, all of a sudden, he loved her. How was that even possible? Naruto slowly walked up the steps of his home, quietly opening the door to see the kitchen lights on. He smiled gently, knowing Hinata, his own wife, had probably gone to bed already. Is this what you want, Sasuke? Naruto whispered to himself, a family. Is that it? He lowered his head. If anything, that's exactly what the Uchiha wanted. But if he just wanted a family, all he had to do was pick some fangirl from the village. Sakura. He wanted Sakura but, he couldn't have her. She belonged to Sai. Naruto walked into the bedroom he and Hinata shared to find his wife sleeping soundly in the middle of the bed. He smiled as he climbed in beside her, giving her a small kiss on the head, sadly thankful, he wasn't like Sasuke. Hey Sai, Naruto called, watching the artist Nin look up from the rows of blue and aquamarine paints. Dickless, Sai smiled, receiving a glare from Naruto. Sasuke smirked behind Naruto. Sai already seemed like an okay guy. There's the little man. Naruto cooed as Sai cradled Seiha against his chest. Not so loud, Dickless, Sai whispered harshly, running his gloved hand over his son's back. Let me hold him. Let me hold him, Naruto shouted, completely ignoring Sai's annoyed glare. Naruto continued to dance around Sai as a breathy cry rang in his ears. Sai glared at Naruto and placed the mewling child against his shoulder, softly rubbing his back and trying to quiet him down again. Oi, you woke my son up, Dickless, Sai growled, softly laying his head down on his son's and continuing to rub soft circles on his back. His little socked feet kicked lightly against Sai's chest with his tiny fists clenching and unclenching the top of his black jacket. Sorry, Naruto grumbled, let me do it. Please, let me do it, Naruto cried, watching Sai lightly sway, trying to stop his son from crying. Be quiet, Dobi, Sasuke growled from behind Naruto, glaring at his friend's back. Sasuke? Sai asked, stepping beside the hyperactive ninja to look at the last Uchiha. Yeah, he came back, Sai. Naruto laughed at Sai's blank face, a face too familiar. I see, Sai's calloused reply came. Sasuke huffed, maybe Sai wasn't as nice as he thought. Hey, where's Sai? Sakura called, walking up behind her husband. Are these the ones you wanted? Her breath hitched when she saw Sasuke standing behind Naruto, glaring at the ground with his hands in his pockets. Hey Sakura. Naruto awkwardly rubbed the back of his head. He came back. Oh, Sakura slowly smiled. Welcome back. Sasuke arched an eyebrow. Was that all she had to say? Did his return even mean anything to her? His hands clenched in his pockets, his glare intensifying towards the ground, thinking about her response. She doesn't even care, he thought bitterly, glancing back up to Sakura. Quote. Sasuke stared at his former pink-haired teammate. She'd changed. Her body had filled out due to having a child, and yet, her eyes still held a breath of youth as she stared at him. But after all those years of her love radiating toward him, it now turned to another man. Sigh. Sakura smiled, turning her attention back to her husband. Are these them? Sai looked down to his wife's small hands holding a package of dark green-handled paintbrushes. Yeah, these are the ones, the artist smiled. I'll go pay for them, Sakura said, quickly turning around and walking back into the open-aired store. Okay. Sai nodded, staring at his son's back as the infant started to quiet down. Sasuke watched Sakura's retreating form in sad realization. She really did love Sai. He looked over to Sai's blissful face, absolutely enraptured by the tiny child he was holding. They were a family he had no part in. Naruto was right, she had moved on. I want to see her happy, Sasuke thought, remembering Sakura's wide smile. The only memories he had of her consisted of tears and somber expressions. Her beautiful smile seemed like a long-lost dream, forgotten upon awakening and painful in remembrance. If Sai was the one that she loved and made her smile again, then he would give her that. How could he deny her happiness? Can I hold him now? Naruto groaned, interrupting Sasuke's thoughts and stomping his foot in front of Sai. If you'll shut up, Sai growled, slowly and hesitantly lifting his son off of his shoulder. Yes, Naruto shouted, reaching out to take the baby from Sai. You'd better not drop him, Dickless. Be careful, the artist yelled. I won't, you bastard. Just shut up. I know what I'm doing. Naruto defended. Yeah, right, Sasuke muttered. The baby started to whimper at the movement and softly thrashed his body against Naruto's. Naruto rubbed the little boy's back, softly cooing to the baby. The child continued to cry in Naruto's arms, opening his small eyes and looking over Naruto's shoulder. Sai stepped behind Naruto and placed his hand on the baby's head. The infant's cries softened as his bright green eyes looked over to Sai's smile. The baby stared at his father, as if trying to decipher who he was being held by. Seiha sniffled back his last few cries, hearing Sai's laughter. I'm here, Seiha. Sai grinned, running his finger from the child's head and over his little nose. I'm here. Uncle Naruto's here too. The blonde cheered, thrusting his fist in the air. Idiot, Sasuke muttered under his breath. What was that, you bastard? Naruto snarled, looking over to Sasuke's smirking face. Sasuke huffed. Sai watched the Uchiha carefully from the corner of his eye. He was a traitor, someone who tried to kill his friends all for power. How did he just come waltzing back into the village as if nothing had ever happened? Why is he here? He wondered, trying to hold back his anger at how Sasuke looked at Sakura. Sai, Sakura called, running out of the shop. All done. Thank you, Sai smiled. Hey Naruto. Sasuke, Sakura greeted, turning her attention to her son. I think he's a little tired. Don't worry, Sakura-chan, I'm fine, Naruto joked. You moron, Sakura laughed. I meant Seiha. She smiled and sighed before turning to her husband. I think we should go, Sai. Sure. Sai smiled. All right, Naruto. Wait. Naruto cried as Sai tried to pick his son up. We'll come with you. Why? Sakura quirked an eyebrow. I want to spend some time with this little guy, Naruto cooed, pursing his lips and bulging his eyes to form some sort of puppy face. Besides, he's already half asleep on my shoulder, you'd just wake him up. All right, Sai groaned, looking sympathetically over to his wife. Let's go. All right, Naruto shouted. Come on, Sasuke. Naruto, Sakura groaned, watching Seiha's head lift from Naruto's shoulder. His little eyes opened and scrunched closed as he let out strangled cries. The baby thrashed his arms against Naruto's chest, frantically crying. Give me my son, Sakura sighed, reaching for Seiha. Naruto lightly laughed as he handed the screaming child over to his mother. Sakura giggled as the infant was placed in her arms and instantly started to quiet down. Geez, Naruto said, he sure loves his mom. Sasuke smirked behind Naruto. Just like me, Sai smiled. Walking up behind his wife, he wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her cheek. She giggled and turned her face to give him a kiss. Sasuke glared at the back of the artist, watching in unchecked anger when Sai ran his hands down to Sakura's hips. Sasuke turned quickly to Naruto, hoping that he would say something but, he didn't. Naruto simply smiled and snickered at the couple. Hey Sai, Naruto chuckled, can't you wait until you're alone to do that? Sai smirked, nuzzling his nose in Sakura's hair, we would be if you weren't coming. TCH, Naruto laughed, bastard. I'll go put him down, Sakura quietly announced, walking past her reunited teammates. Sasuke watched her swaying hips move up the stairs, softly as not to disturb the tiny infant in her arms. His fists clenched as he looked over to Sai, who was also watching Sakura walk away with smoldering lust-filled stares. Oi, Sai, Naruto started, do you guys have any ramen? No Naruto, Sai sighed, you ate the last of it a few days ago. Oh, Naruto sheepishly replied, are you sure? Can't you eat something else, dickless? Sai groaned, pressing his gloved hands to his temple in frustration. No, Naruto frantically sighed, I guess I'll go get some then. Idiot, Sasuke muttered, keeping his gaze fixated on Sai, I'll go. No, Naruto cut in, you don't know what kind I like. Sasuke rolled his eyes and slowly turned towards the door, not before missing the suspicious glare Sai threw him. I just need to get out of here, Sasuke thought. I'll get it, Naruto announced, running towards the door, I'll be back in a little bit. Bye. Wait Naruto, Sasuke growled, TCH loser. Sai watched the last Uchiha standing in his living room nervously. He kept his cold eyes focused, but he wasn't comfortable with Sasuke in his home. He knew Sakura had always loved Sasuke, and with his return, he didn't want to lose his wife. I think I should go, Sasuke softly spoke, sensing the tension from Sai's hard gaze. I think that would be wise, Sai replied truthfully. Sasuke tried to control his glare towards the artist, slowly turning around and beginning to walk towards the door. Okay. Sakura's soft voice beamed, he's asleep. Sai's frown turned into a blissful smile in an instant at the mention of his son. Sasuke didn't even have to turn around to feel how much Sai loved his little boy and Sakura, he was completely taken with the two of them. They were a family, not him and Sakura but, Sai and Sakura. Sasuke. Sakura quietly spoke, where's Naruto? Dickless went to get some ramen, Sai answered, glaring at the back of Sasuke, and Sasuke was just leaving. Oh, Sakura softly smiled, why? Training, Sasuke lied, resting his hand on the doorknob. You can train anytime, Sakura laughed, stay. Kakashi and Yamato are coming over later for dinner. I don't think. Oh come on Sasuke, Sakura sighed, just stay for a little while. Sakura, Sai started, if he wants to leave, let him. Sasuke's eyes widened at the unmarred acid in Sai's tone. He realized the artist thought of him as a threat and didn't want him around. He would have smirked at the jealousy if the situation were different, but he stared at the ground, still unmoving from his spot. Sasuke, Sakura asked, will you stay? Again, Sasuke's eyes widened. Those words were so similar to the ones she spoke 7 years ago when she tried to stop him from leaving. It pained him to find himself in the same situation from back then. How was he still always leaving her? And how was she always asking him to stay? He wondered if she even realized their significance. You don't have to, Sai bit out, uncaring and unconvinced with the Uchiha's lack of movement. Sai, Sakura harshly whispered, what's the matter with you? He doesn't want to stay, Sai replied, placing his hand on her shoulder with a firm grasp. But, I'll stay, Sasuke cut in. Sai huffed. Good. Sakura half-heartedly smiled. Come in and make yourself at home. I'll start dinner. Thank you, he replied slowly, turning around to face the hard glower from Sai. Sai, Sakura whispered, can I talk to you? Sai nodded and left Sasuke to stand in the living room. He stared at the various pictures decorating the walls with envy. They all were photos of his teammates. Naruto laughing with a mouthful of ramen and a disgusted Sakura and Kakashi, a new team picture with the two new members of Team 7 and various drawings and paintings, most of which Sasuke realized Sai had done. He tiptoed around to the mantel on the far side of the room and touched the dark mahogany frame of a photograph with slight anger. It was Sai and Sakura's wedding photo. Sasuke reveled in how beautiful Sakura looked in her kimono, standing next to a dark tall man. His gaze fell onto Sai's brimming face with anguish and distaste. He quickly tore his eyes from the picture and let them fall onto a large, vibrant and extravagant book lying on a side table. Quietly, he walked over and picked up the large book and carefully opened the first page. Sakura, he absently whispered as his eyes softened on the contents. The pictures started with Sakura smiling towards the camera and laying a hand on her small stomach. Sasuke continued to flip through the pages, realizing the book was dedicated to Sakura and her son. However much it pained him to watch the pictures of Sakura's stomach grow, he decided to keep on looking. He frowned at how Yamato and Kakashi stood around Sakura and held up various gifts to her stomach. A ghost of a smile stretched across his face when Kakashi held up one of his mini perverted books to Sakura's large stomach, much to Sakura's dismay in the photo. She looks so beautiful, he thought, watching Naruto hugging Sakura's shoulders. He stopped at the last few photos of Sai and Sakura softly embracing. Sai's face always showed so much joy and happiness as he would cradle Sakura in his arms and kneel down and embrace her stomach, burying his face into the fabric of her dress. Sakura's smile was etched into his mind. It seemed even more beautiful than he remembered 7 years ago. Resuming his pace, he quickly flipped through the few last pages of Sai and Sakura, not wanting to see any more of the artist, and stopped when Sakura was laying against the hospital pillows holding a small bundle in her arms. His fingers lightly ran over her photographed face, brightly smiling down at the child with her tired jade eyes. He smiled at how even though she had just given birth, she still looked so vivacious and full of life. The next few pictures showed the tiny infant, dark as night hair and tiny closed eyes with little fists and feet. He longed to be the man in the next couple of photos, laying his bare hand upon his tiny child's head and absently trading kisses with Sakura and the baby. But he wasn't. Sai was pictured lying next to Sakura with his head on her chest, softly rubbing the infant's back and smiling next to his face. He was the one holding his firstborn son close to his heart, with Sakura laying her head on his shoulder and smiling into his neck. He softly smiled at the pictures scattered among the pages of Sakura with her tiny child lying on her chest. You missed a lot, a gentle voice started. Sasuke jumped from looking at all of the pictures and turned toward the voice. Sakura smiled and sauntered over to him holding the photo album. Sasuke quickly diverted his gaze from her full form coming towards him and focused on the book. He flipped a page and widened his eyes at the next image that followed. A small blush crept across his cheeks at the photo of Sakura nursing her baby with a small smile and then a bright red face, trying to hide herself from the camera. I don't know why he wanted those pictures, Sakura sighed, smiling at Sasuke's blush. Sasuke stopped and closed the book, trying to contain his anger at realizing Sai was the one to take the pictures of Sakura. He trailed, setting the book down and looking over to Sakura's concerned face, maybe I should go. No. Sakura frantically cut in and placed her hand on his arm. Dinner's almost ready and Yamato and Kakashi should be here soon. Sasuke. Sakura lightly blushed. Please, there's a lot to talk about. Sasuke downshifted his eyes. Yeah, she was right, there was a lot to talk about. Her hand still lay on his arm. softly clenching his forearm and emitting warmth. He became sensitive to the proximity of their bodies. He could feel Sakura's breath on his shoulder and the fine unmarred skin from her forearms touching his skin with feathery shudders. There's so much I want to say to you, Sasuke thought, but I can't. Kakashi and soon. Sasuke smirked, trying to lighten the mood. Well, I told him to be here 3 hours ago. Sakura laughed. Come on Sasuke, Sai's in the kitchen. Sakura. Sasuke started. Yes. Sakura. He breathed. I'm sorry. Sasuke. Sakura sighed. That's not what this was supposed to be about. I know but. Sasuke. Sakura turned to smile at him. I just want to be a team again. Quote, comma dot. I see. Sasuke whispered. He slowly shook his arm away from her hold and walked past her. He knew what Sakura was trying to stop. She didn't want him to be that close anymore. It was blatantly obvious being a team was all she wanted from him. Nothing more than just plain friendship. Sasuke placed his hands in his pockets, still remembering the way her warm hands held onto his forearm. She didn't love him anymore and didn't want to hear that he loved her now. She stopped loving him years ago and he was too late to make up for what he did in leaving her in the village. Sakura continued to watch the back of Sasuke as he walked into the kitchen. Her eyes fell onto the top of the photo album and she sighed, I'm sorry too Sasuke. Oh boy, Sai really doesn't like Sasuke does he? Sakura. Sai called from the kitchen, breaking Sakura from her previous thoughts, they're here. I'm coming. Sakura laughed, quickly running into the kitchen to see her two senseis, one looking annoyed and the other giggling over his weathered perverted book. Kakashi sensei. Sakura groaned, couldn't you have left that at home? I was just getting to a good part, the copy nin laughed. Yamato shook his head at his friend, rolling his eyes about Kakashi's habit. Good evening Sakura, he nodded, how are you doing? Fine. Sakura laughed, thanks for dragging him here. No problem. Yamato laughed at her reference to Kakashi, he wasn't too much trouble. I see. Sakura smirked, eyeing her distracted sensei. Yamato Taiko. Sai's soft voice came, have you met Sasuke? He lightly sneered, motioning to the Uchiha leaning against the kitchen corner, slightly frowning at the reunion. Number. Yamato smiled, at least, we haven't been properly introduced. Well then, the artist frowned, here's your chance. Yamato stared at the ninja in confusion, the tone in Sai's voice was pure hatred and malice. Even Kakashi looked up from his orange book to see Sai's painful sneering smile with his finger pointed at the corner with Sasuke. Okay. Yamato nervously smiled, Sasuke, it's nice to meet you. Sasuke huffed. He crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes at the artist. He was completely aware of the fact that Sai didn't like him and thought of him as a threat, but did he really hate him that much? Sai, Sakura harshly whispered, grabbing onto her husband's shoulder, what's wrong with you? I'm just introducing them, the artist nonchalantly replied. Sakura. Kakashi smiled under his mask, where's Naruto? Oh dickless. Sai smiled, he went out to get some ramen. I see, the copy nin laughed, closing his book and sitting down around the kitchen table. Dinner should be ready soon. Sakura tensely smiled, letting her gaze linger on her husband's glaring hard face, staring intently at the Uchiha. She casually looked back to Sasuke and saw him returning the same hatred-filled glare. Maybe this was a bad idea, Sakura thought, I should have let him leave. Sasuke, Yamato called, come sit down with us. Sai reluctantly moved to sit down at the table, watching closely for the Uchiha to do the same. He waited for Sasuke to move and sighed when he stayed at his spot on the wall, still eagle-eyed watching the artist's movement. Sasuke, Sakura sighed, go sit down. Oi, Sakura-chan. Sai. Naruto's obnoxious voice yelled, I'm back. We're in the kitchen Naruto, Sakura called back listening to the front door slam shut and Naruto's excited feet padding into the kitchen. Sakura-chan. Naruto chuckled, where's Seiha? Sleeping. The pink-haired woman sighed, He's had a busy day, Naruto. Ah, but I want to see my nephew. He whined, staring to the woman next to him with a pouting and quivering lip. He haphazardly threw his elbows on the table and thrust his face in between his hands, groaning in annoyance. When's he going to wake up? I don't know, Naruto. Sakura sighed, pushing his face back with her hand. Leave him alone. But, would you just shut up, Naruto? Sai growled, dropping his set of chopsticks on his plate. His usually stoic face puffed in anger with his casual dark eyes flickering in between anger and disgust. Sakura closed her eyes and sighed. She knew how angry Sai was about having Sasuke over, and it wasn't helping that the Uchiha was sitting next to him. She could see the uncomfortable face Sasuke was trying to hide beneath his cool glaring eyes. Even though Team 7 was reunited, it was almost impossible to keep a civil conversation between them. Any stories of Sakura and Naruto's Genin days left Sai completely in the dark, and any anecdotes of Sakura and Naruto in the new team left Sasuke alone. Both shinobi were angrily side-glancing each other at various stories that Naruto or Kakashi told. Geez, Sai. Naruto half-heartedly tried to smile. I was just asking. Well, stop, the artist snarled, letting his clenched fist drop onto the table. Just be quiet. Sai. Yamato started. What's wrong? Nothing, Sai curtly replied, turning his hateful glare towards Sasuke. Why don't we change the subject? The copy nin suggested. I agree, Yamato smiled while stuffing a dumpling in his mouth. So, how is it being back in Konoha, Sasuke? The Anbu captain spoke. Sasuke muttered. Fine, I guess. Again, Kakashi and Yamato tried to start up a conversation with the remote Uchiha. What's wrong with Sai? Is he? Naruto? Sakura whispered. Just leave him alone. But, shish, Sakura scolded. I think. She trailed, rising from her seat on the floor. Before Naruto could ask, Sakura's retreating form was easing up the stairs. Hey guys, Sakura beamed, standing in the doorway with a sniffling Seiha on her shoulder. Look who's up. Seiha, Naruto shouted, opening his arms wide to Sakura and the baby. Be quiet, dickless, Sai growled, he just woke up. Kakashi and Yamato couldn't help but smirk at how Sai's disposition suddenly brightened after Sakura and his son came in the room. The artist didn't give any of them a second look before swiftly rising and walking over to his wife and child. There's my little man, the ninja smiled, softly lifting the baby off of Sakura's shoulder and laying him against his chest. Hey you bastard, Naruto yelled, I wanted to hold him. Wait your turn, dickless, Sai replied, smiling down at his son. The baby slowly opened and closed his eyes, lying against his father's chest. His little fists clenched and unclenched his jacket, and a small sigh escaped his tiny body. Sakura giggled at her son and gave Sai a quick kiss on the cheek, watching his face mold from disgust and anger to love and joy. Only his son and I make him act this way, Sakura thought, lightly touching Sai's arm and guiding him back to the table. Let me hold him, Sai. Naruto whined, quickly crawling over between the artist and the annoyed Uchiha. Shut up, Sai smirked, I want to hold him. But, Naruto quivered, that's not fair. He's my son, Sai growled, rubbing his hand over his son's clothed back and feeling the child place his cheek on his shoulder. Please, I just want to see him. Naruto, Kakashi groaned, he's not a toy. Idiot, Sasuke muttered under his breath. Sakura sighed, let him hold Seiha before he has a heart attack. Fine, the artist snarled, but only for a few minutes, he warned. With that, Sai softly raised his son from his shoulder, much to the infant's discomfort, and placed him in Naruto's widespread arms. The blonde ninja quickly rose from his spot on the floor and swayed around the room, rubbing the child's back in soft circles and cooing softly against his feathery black hair. Sakura softly smiled and touched Sai's shoulder. Her first attempt was to calm him and distract his scrutinizing glare at Naruto, but the only expression she found was that of contentment. Sai, Sakura questioned, astonished that her husband hadn't scolded Naruto and demanded that he stay in the same room with the rest of them. He would have made a good father, the artist mumbled, watching Naruto's back dance around their living room, off-key singing and kissing his son's head. He heard the soft sounds Seiha made in his attempts at laughter and wrapped his arm around Sakura's waist, bringing his lips to the side of her head. Yeah, Sakura sadly sighed, he would've. Sakura continued to listen to Naruto's overzealous attempts to make Seiha laugh and say, "Uncle Naruto," in sadness. She knew the reason why he left the room whenever he would rock Seiha. He never wanted anyone to see or hear the tears that fell from his eyes, but Sakura always heard. She always heard him crying whenever he would make Seiha laugh or rock him to sleep. She never told him she knew. What do you mean he would have made a great father? Sasuke softly spoke, catching the secrecy between his old teammates. Hinata can't have children, Sasuke, Kakashi slowly replied. What? The Uchiha instantly looked up to see his old sensei looking sadly down at the table and picking at his leftover food, absently trailing his other hand at a loose strand in his Jonin vest. Hinata had a miscarriage a couple of years back and Kakashi sighed. We almost lost her, Yamato continued, if it hadn't been for Sakura. Hinata would have died. Sasuke slowly nodded. They didn't need to tell him the rest. He's really close to Seiha. Sai started, he was with Sakura and I when she had him and every day since then. Sasuke stared at the back of the artist, noticing how venom wasn't dripping from his words. He really loves him, the artist finished. Sakura leaned against Sai's shoulder and gave it a quick kiss. She continued to watch Naruto until the blonde couldn't control the infant's whimpers anymore. She gave a small smile when Naruto slowly walked back into the room and laughed, nodding to Sakura. I think he's hungry, Sakura-chan. Naruto blushed. Naruto, Sakura smiled, do you want to feed him? What? Naruto yelled, his eyes growing wide. Sakura, don't you need to? You know, I don't think I should. Relax, dickless, Sai smirked, he can have a bottle now. Really? The hyperactive ninja excitedly jumped up and down, can I really? Sakura nodded and motioned for Naruto to go over to the fridge to find his bottle. Naruto giddily skipped over to the light beige fridge and grabbed the light blue bottle with giraffes painted on it. Taking off the lid, he slowly eased the tip to Seiha's mewling mouth and watched as the infant started drinking slowly. There you go, buddy, Naruto laughed, got to get you nice and strong to be a ninja. Sai and Sakura lightly laughed watching Naruto dance around the kitchen with their child in his arms. Sasuke watched Sakura's soft smiling face, completely focused on Naruto's movements and Seiha's drinking noises as the baby attempted to hold the bottle with his own chubby little hands. He gave ghost of a smile at how content and beautiful she looked with her long pink hair framing her face and with the excess being pulled back into a loose ponytail. She still wore her headband on top of her head like back in their Genin days, making Sasuke reminisce about how she used to fawn over him and want to go on a date with him. I don't think that's going to be happening, Sasuke jealously thought, drifting his gaze over to Sai. He was surprised to see the artist not looking so much at Naruto but more at Sakura. His eyes were filled with sparkling lust and care as he let his arm wrapped around her waist fall to the small of her back and his hand lingering on her thigh. Sasuke wanted to growl and yell at the artist for touching her but he didn't. He sadly watched the woman that used to love him run her hand sensually along her husband's thigh, drifting dangerous close to the inside of his leg. Sai's lips curled into a smirk when his wife's fingers dragged against his inner thigh, much to Sasuke's anger and envy. He longed to be the one to feel Sakura's warm caresses and fluttering fingers on his body. Her loving jade eyes stared at her husband's face in smirking amusement while Sasuke quickly looked away, almost sickened by watching the woman he now loved being intimate with another man. He looked away and focused back on Naruto and Seiha, also wishing it was his child that his old friend was cooing to. He wanted his child to have his black hair and Sakura's large innocent emerald eyes but, instead, that child would grow up to paint and draw not to use the Sharingan. Sakura, Sasuke thought, why? Why didn't I listen to you that night? All he could think about were the what ifs. What if he had stayed? What if he had told Sakura he loved her all those years ago? Would she and Naruto have helped him kill Itachi? Would she have married him and would Seiha be his child? He wondered about the future if he hadn't gone to Orochimaru and left her. He wondered what would have happened if he never left. He continued to wonder and let his confusion play into his face, his eyes clouding over in thought. He didn't notice Yamato's look of sorrow or Kakashi's sigh. And he didn't notice Sakura's look of sadness pass over her features. It's going to take a while, but if you keep reviewing, I upload quicker and the Sasusaku NES will come sooner. Read and review. Oh, by the way, I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. For those of us in the USA, I felt like a redneck watching blue-collar TV, but hey, it was funny. There, Naruto smiled giddily down at the child. All done, buddy. The blonde ninja dropped the empty bottle in the kitchen sink and slowly raised Seiha against his shoulder, lightly patting his back. He continued to walk around the kitchen, humming softly to the baby and muttering sayings about how he was going to be the next Hokage and the joys of being able to eat ramen. Great, Sai huffed, if Dickless keeps talking to Seiha like that, there's going to be two of them. Kakashi and Yamato laughed and Sakura giggled, tenderly giving her husband's thigh a squeeze. Sai jumped a little at his wife's playful act and smirked at her. Oi, Dickless. He called. What? Naruto asked, briefly turning around to look at the artist. If you keep spinning around like that, Sai chuckled, Seiha's going to get sick on you. Hey, Naruto laughed, yeah, I guess so. Slowly pulling the child away from his shoulder, the hyper ninja walked over to Kakashi. Do you want to go to Uncle Kakashi? Sasuke smirked and shook his head. There wasn't any way the famous copy ninja would ever hold a baby, let alone want to do it. But Sasuke was wrong. Come here, mister. Kakashi chuckled, slowly taking the baby out of Naruto's hold. I've got something for you. It better not be one of your perverted books, Kakashi-sensei, Sai scolded, watching Kakashi dig through one of his pockets of his Jonin vest. Relax, Kakashi snickered, I wouldn't give him one of those books, yet. Sensei. Sakura cried, her cheeks fuming pink and eyes bulging wide. I'm kidding, Sakura, her former sensei muttered, I'd never do that. Yeah, right, Yamato whispered candidly to Sai. With a smirk, Sai bent over Sakura's ear and huskily whispered, maybe we could use one of those later. Sasuke seethed in anger at the artist ninja whispering in Sakura's ear. Whatever he was saying made Sakura's cheeks flush and her lips quiver in a small excited smile. What the hell is that bastard up to? He wondered, watching Sakura twist her head to let her lips brush over Sai's ear. Why don't we let Naruto take Seiha tonight? She purred softly, we haven't had a night to ourselves for a while now. Sai gave an excited nod and kissed the side of his wife's cheek, letting his lips linger and allowing him to smirk into her skin. His hand dropped from her thigh to her rear, giving it a light squeeze and further smirking when she attempted to stop the gasp and jerk of her hips. Here you go, little man, Kakashi smiled, pulling out a stuffed brown dog with a makeshift Konoha leaf symbol headband covering his left eye. He raised the toy above Seiha's head, wiggling it back and forth to get the infant's attention. The baby's eyes glimmered in amusement and he loudly cooed in joy, stretching his little mouth into a wide smile and reaching his bitty hands eagerly up to the stuffed toy. Come on, Seiha, Kakashi smiled, crinkling his right eye in soft laughter. Reach for it. The infant, almost in understanding, kicked his little legs and reached higher for the dog. His black hair framed his lively chubby face with his bright jade eyes shimmering in excitement. Oi, stop teasing him, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto growled, sitting to the side of his teacher and crossing his arms over his chest. I'm not teasing him, the copy ninja defended, I'm teaching him. Geez, Yamato snickered, quickly snatching the dog from his friend's grip. He's only a baby. Yamato smiled down wildly at the infant and lowered the toy within his reach, letting his little hands close around the long floppy ears of the stuffed dog. Just let him have his fun for now. There's plenty of time to train when he gets bigger. Within seconds of being given his toy, Seiha closely looked at the dog in front of him and pulled slightly at the ears. Sighing in contentment, the baby gurgled and smiled, kicking his legs and giggling at his new toy, almost as if it was playing with him. Ah, Naruto cooed, he likes it, Sakura-chan. Look at him. Sai and Sakura started to laugh at Seiha's little sounds of pleasure while he swung the dog by the ears and kicked his legs up in the air. Yamato lightly chuckled and tickled the infant's clothed stomach with his index finger, drawing more giggles out of the tiny baby. Even Sasuke couldn't stop the amused smile from passing over his usually glum features. Even though the child wasn't his, he couldn't help but be in awe when around him. He marveled at how the baby laughed and was giddy with every little laugh that the adults surrounding him produced, only to be encouraged to laugh more, almost as if he was making the connection between his little movements and their happiness. They continued to watch the child's mewling over his new toy in complete enrapture, forgetting about the tension between the company. Kakashi raised Seiha over his head and slowly twisted his body, drawing more giggles from the baby. His little chubby arms contorted in his body as Kakashi used his gloved hands to raise Seiha by his sides. Sasuke watched his former sensei lower and lift the baby again, much to Seiha's amusement, with a tinge of pain. His gaze continued to drift languidly between Seiha and then to Sakura. He wanted to tell her how much he loved her and was sorry, but there was something in his way. And that something happened to be her husband, Sai. His fists curled in seething rage at being replaced not only in Team 7 but in Sakura's heart. How Sakura could just move on was beyond him. All of those confessions of love she had for him years ago, how did they just wash away? Why didn't she wait for him? Why him? Why the emotionless Sai? Why that bastard? Naruto, Sakura softly spoke up, noticing Seiha's distant giggles being replaced by lazy movements. Why don't you go put Seiha's pajamas on? He looks a bit tired. Okay. The blonde laughed, carefully pulling the child out of his sensei's hold and briskly rising from his spot on the ground. We'll be back. So, Kakashi leered, watching in amusement at Sai and Sakura's tender caresses and kisses. When is Seiha getting a sibling? Kakashi. Sakura yelled, her cheeks tinging with a faint pink. Soon. Sai smiled, I hope. Sasuke's glare hardened on the table in front of him. How could his former sensei talk about Sakura and Sai having more children right in front of him? Couldn't Kakashi see how much it discomforted him? Sai. Sakura screamed, giving him a gentle nudge on the shoulder. Sasuke's arms twitched under the table, his nails digging into the palm of his hand at Sai's blunt answers. I bet that bastard's loving this. Sasuke inwardly boiled with rage. Resting his fists on his knees, he tried to concentrate on his breathing, trying in vain to tune out the conversation surrounding him. Yamato and Kakashi smirked. If Sakura was really that embarrassed, Sai would have been flying across the room by that nudge. I see, Yamato laughed. Well, maybe you'll have a little girl, Sakura, wouldn't that be nice? Do we have to talk about this? Sakura grumbled, annoyed that her senseis were so interested in her S**x life. Why don't we talk about something else? Why? Sai asked, confused as to why his wife wanted to be so secretive about their future family plans. I think a little girl would be nice. I know, but Sakura. Sasuke quickly interrupted, unable to take any more of the conversation. Where's the bathroom? Oh, upstairs, she pointed behind her. It's the first door on the left. Thank you. Sasuke quickly trekked up the stairs, his legs seemingly wanted to stay back at the table with Sakura. His feet tingled with every step he took up the stairs. His stomach churned with thinking about how Sai and Sakura could have another child. It repulsed him. Thinking of how Sakura's fingers and hands would caress Sai's dark hair while he got to see the every inch of the pink-haired woman was sickening. He forced himself to breathe while trying to shake the lover's thoughts from his mind. Reaching the top of the stairs, he started to turn to the left when a soft cooing tickled his ears. Forgetting about his need to get away, he walked toward the source of the noise and stood against the doorframe, listening to Naruto retell stories to Seiha. No wonder what took him so long, he thought, letting a small smile form on his face while listening to the child's soft laughs. And then, Gaara, he transformed into this beast. Naruto accentuated his remark by raising his arms above his head and making claws with his fingers and crouching down on his legs. It was really scary, you know that. The child gurgled and kicked his legs, which Naruto took as his cue to continue. Then your mother, wow, she really was brave, stepped in front of Gaara's attack. Naruto jumped to side of the room and spread his arms wide, smiling to the side at the infant's bright green eyes staring intently back at him. She was protecting your uncle Sasuke from the monster. I see you still haven't changed, Dobi. Sasuke smirked from his position at the door, crossing his arms and leaning against the frame, still living in the past, huh? Like you're one to talk, bastard. Naruto sarcastically laughed, walking back over to Seiha in his crib and cranking his mobile of ninja dogs. What's that supposed to mean? Sasuke growled, carefully watching the tone in his voice, so not to disturb the child. I've seen you staring at her. Naruto lowly spoke, tension and stress playing at his voice. You need to stop it. I wasn't. Yes, you were. Naruto raised his voice, huffing and breathing sporadically. You lost your chance 7 years ago. Don't mess things up with her and sigh. Quote. What are you playing at? Naruto shook his head, placing both hands on the crib's edge and smiling forcefully down at Seiha's big eyes, staring back at him with childish innocence, the same innocence he had lost years ago. Look at you, little guy, he cooed, touching the hand of the baby. You've got no idea what's going on to you. Everything's just a new world to you, isn't it? I'm not doing anything, Naruto, Sasuke piped in. You're trying to start things up, Naruto growled, still forcing a wide toothy grin down at the baby. I swear, Sasuke, if you do anything to cause Sakura-chan any more pain. I'm not, Sasuke cut in, I just want to tell her. You bastard, Naruto sardonically laughed again, shaking his head and finally turning to his friend. You haven't changed at all. Everything's still about you, he accused, walking away from the crib and over to his friend. You don't even care about Sakura. She's just something you can't have, and now that she's finally gone, you can't handle it. Sasuke backed away from the door, letting Naruto come through the threshold and close Seiha's door behind him. I love her, Naruto, Sasuke muttered. No, you don't. Naruto shook his head. You don't know what love is. Yes, I. No, you don't. The blonde screeched, pounding his fist on the wall beside Seiha's door. You want to mess everything up. You just can't accept everyone being happy but you. That's not. Just shut up. Naruto growled, quickly grabbing Sasuke by the collar of his shirt and slamming the back of his head against the wall behind him. I saw the way you were looking at her. The Uchiha didn't struggle against Naruto's hold and stayed silent. You say you love her, right? He further jerked the collar fisted in his hand against his old friend's chin, right? He further pressed. Yes. Then let her be happy. Naruto watched the Uchiha's eyes drift past him and fixed on a spot on the wall. Listen to me, if you do anything to hurt Sakura-chan or Seiha, I'll kill you. I'm not planning to hurt her, Sasuke admitted, glaring back at his friend with his dark coal eyes. You're not planning to, but you will. Naruto huffed and shook his head. Sai already hates you, don't make things worse. TCH. Leave Sakura and her family alone, Naruto warned. Don't you think you've done enough damage? The blonde released the Uchiha's collar and ran his hands through his hair, smiling and shaking his head when Seiha started to cry. All Sakura wants is to be a team again, and I know that, Sasuke lowly muttered. She already told me. Good, Naruto curtly replied, then leave it at that. Go find some other woman to marry and have kids with. No, Sasuke cut in, I don't want some other woman. Then be alone for all I care. Naruto shouted, cringing at how the breathy cries turned into all-out screams from the infant. You don't care about anybody but yourself. Stay the hell away from her. Naruto. This discussion is over, Sasuke. Naruto snarled, holding the doorknob to Seiha's room. There's nothing more to say but, let me tell you this. Sasuke looked up to see the furrowed brows of his old friend with his usual happy grin turned into a full glare dripping with murderous intent. If you try something, no one in this village will stand by you. Everyone hates you for what you've done and don't think that because you were let back into the village everyone wants you here. Quote, comma, dot, dot. I'm not going to hurt her, Naruto, Sasuke whispered, repeating his previous statement. Good, Naruto replied, twisting the doorknob and walking back into the infant's room, leaving Sasuke out in the hall to think about his words. I tried putting him to bed but, Naruto grinned and rubbed the back of his head nervously, he just wouldn't go to sleep. I see, Sakura giggled, watching Seiha's teary face turn into a wide smile. I think he's got you wrapped around his little finger, Naruto. What? Naruto looked at Seiha's bright face and frowned. Hey little mister. That's not very nice. Sigh. Sakura and their two senseis laughed at the blonde's faked hurt face. It was true. Seiha had everyone wrapped around his tiny little finger. Whenever Sakura would leave Seiha in Sai's care, the infant would never go to sleep and continued to laugh and play until his mother got home. It seemed Sakura was the only one who could get him to sleep, but any other time, it was as if the baby didn't want to miss anything important. Hey Naruto, Sai smirked, do you want to babysit Seiha tonight? He hasn't been to see Hinata and. Say no more, Sai, Naruto shouted, his eyes lighting up. Hinata's on a mission but, he smiled playfully at Seiha, we'll have some fun, won't we buddy? Seiha squealed in delight and giggled, grabbing at Naruto's nose and patting his cheeks with his chubby hands. Alright little guy, Naruto heartily laughed, biting Seiha's fingers with his lips and brushing his nose against the infant's. Do you want to come with Uncle Naruto? Yeah, you do huh? Well then, let's go get your stuff. Wait, Sakura sighed, let me help you. I'll come too, Sai said, noticing Sasuke's footsteps coming down the stairs. Sasuke emerged a moment later and coolly walked back into the kitchen, taking his place beside Yamato and looking casually down at the table. His eyes distantly stared at the place in front of him as he contemplated Naruto's words. So, Kakashi's voice broke through his thoughts, what was all that about? What? Sasuke asked, not looking up at his sensei. You and Naruto's yelling, Yamato quipped, we could hear you. Then you should know what it was about. Sasuke, Kakashi sighed, rubbing his temples through his headband, you're lucky Sakura wasn't paying attention to your conversation. I bet that bastard was distracting her, Sasuke inwardly growled, letting his fists ring a napkin on the table. Sasuke, Kakashi continued, Naruto was right, don't make problems for her. Quote, comma, dot, dot. It's like he said, Yamato whispered, you're too late. She really does love Sai, can't you see that? I want to tell her how I. No you don't, Kakashi growled. What? Sasuke looked up to see his former sensei's right eye gleaming in rage and frustration. You just don't want her to be happy. That's not true, Sasuke quickly defended. Yes it is, Yamato sighed, I don't know what kind of sick game you're playing at but, the Jonin growled, glaring at the Uchiha, whatever your goal is, I suggest you quit. Even if you do love Sakura, Kakashi drawled, she doesn't love you. Those words hit Sasuke hard. He never realized what not having Sakura's dying affection would mean until he didn't have it anymore. She still had to love him in some way. Her feelings for him couldn't have just disappeared. How do you know? Sasuke bit out, angered by everyone's opinion. If she did still love you, Yamato started, she wouldn't have married Sai. Maybe she doesn't. Don't, Kakashi snarled, dropping his fist on the table and startling the Uchiha, don't you ever say she doesn't love him. But, she loves him more than anything and that child, Kakashi continued, he means the world not only to her but to him. I didn't mean to. Sasuke, Yamato sighed, whatever delusions you have about stealing Sakura away from Sai need to stop. She doesn't love you anymore, why can't you just accept that? That's not. So this is what I get for allowing you to stay in my home. The usual stoic voice of Sai bit out, his form standing at the doorway. You're trying to steal my wife. Sai, I didn't. Get out, Sai barked. Get out of my house. Sai, Kakashi started. Calm down, he wasn't. Are you still trying to defend him, Kakashi-sensei? Sai asked, astonished. No, but, Kakashi sighed, Sasuke. I was just. Leave, Sai growled. Fine, the Uchiha hissed. Sasuke slowly rose from his spot of the floor and walked through the kitchen, looking towards the ground with his hands in his pockets, avoiding the deathly glare from the artist and sorrowful stares of his senseis. Don't ever come back, Sai warned, stay the hell away from Sakura. Sasuke continued walking until he reached the front door and heard a soft voice, Sasuke. Sai, Sakura questioned, holding an overnight bag for Seiha, what's going on? The Uchiha, Sai spat, is just leaving. Oh god, Sasuke, Naruto murmured, shaking his head with the child in his arms, what have you done? Thank you for having me, Sakura, Sasuke whispered, never turning around to see the confused and shocked face of the woman he loved. Get out, Sai sneered, opening the door and pointing to the outside, leave, now. Without a word, Sasuke left the house and disappeared into the night, quietly regretting saying anything to his friend or senseis. Sai, Sakura quietly asked, what happened? Nothing, the artist gravely replied. Is Seiha's stuff ready? He lightly asked, turning to smile at his wife. Yeah, Sakura confusedly spoke, he's all set. Naruto, Sai smiled, can I see my son? Yeah, Naruto nodded, giving Sai a sorry glance before lifting the gurgling child away from his shoulder. There's my little man, Sai cooed, listen little one, he smiled, touching his nose to his son's, you be good for Uncle Naruto, okay? Sakura forced a smile and sighed. Usually, Sai's idea of acting good for Uncle Naruto entailed always crying and never sleeping. Even if Sai couldn't be there to personally anger and frustrate Naruto, he wanted his son to take his place. But this time was different. Sai was sincere in his asking of Seiha to be good. Okay, little guy, Sai laughed, giving his baby a kiss on the cheek. Be good for your uncle and Naruto. Sai looked up, I'll pick Seiha up tomorrow afternoon. Alright, Naruto gingerly laughed, slowly taking the overnight bag from Sakura and giving her a big smile. See you tomorrow, Sakura-chan. Bye, Naruto. Sakura smiled. Sai, let me say goodbye to Seiha. Sai nodded and let Sakura take her son from her husband's hands. Alright, my little ninja, she giggled, watching the brilliant smile play on her son's face. You heard what your dad said, now, be good and play nice with Naruto. Sai smirked at the pout Naruto gave and listened to his wife. I love you, Seiha. She smiled and gave him another kiss on the cheek. I'll see you tomorrow, little one, okay? The baby smiled and ducked his head down on Sakura's shoulder, grabbing a fistful of pink hair from her ponytail behind her neck and giving the strands a gentle tug. Sai laughed and pulled the child away from his wife's hair, watching in amusement as his wife's eyes squinted at her son not letting go of her hair willingly. Alright, Naruto, Sai smiled, see you two tomorrow. Say bye to mommy and daddy, Seiha. Naruto laughed, raising Seiha's little fist and waving it, much to the child's amusement. Say good night to Uncle Kakashi and Uncle Yamato. Bye, Seiha, the two Jonin laughed, waving to the baby. See you two later, Naruto called, pulling Seiha's hood over his black hair and laying his head down on his shoulder. Bye, Sakura whispered as Sai wrapped a possessive arm around her waist and waved. Well, Yamato yawned, I think it's about time for me to leave too. Right, Kakashi drawled, too much excitement for this old man. Old man is right, Yamato muttered, smirking over to Sai and Sakura. I heard that, Kakashi grumbled, I'm not that old. Are you two leaving too? Sakura asked, walking back into the kitchen with her husband. Yeah, Yamato sighed, I've got to go see Tsunade tomorrow morning, but she'll probably be drunk, so, he snickered, chances are, I'll get a few more hours to sleep in. I see, Sai silently laughed. And I just got to the climax part in my book and I really didn't need to know that sensei, Sakura grumbled, watching her sensei pull out his beloved orange book. Well, Yamato smiled, see you later. Bye. Kakashi laughed. Both Jonin disappeared in a cloud of smoke, leaving Sai and Sakura in the kitchen by themselves. Sai, Sakura whispered, what happened with you and Sasuke? Nothing, the artist glumly replied. Tell me, she pleaded, shaking his arm. It's nothing, Sakura. What did he say? She asked, sighing and shifting her weight to her right side. Nothing. Sai shook his head, it was nothing. But, Sakura, Sai started, pulling his wife into his chest, everything's fine. Can we just forget about it? No, Sakura said, jerking her body away from her husband's, I want to know what's going on. Why did you throw him outside? He was what? Sakura asked, placing both hands on her hips and glaring at her husband. Sakura, Sai sighed, do you like him? What? The Uchiha, Sai hissed, do you like him? Sakura stared at her husband's contemplative face. She noticed his brows knitting in confusion and realized he was struggling to make her understand his meaning. What's he talking about? She wondered. Do I? Oh. Sakura shook her head and fought the giggle at the back of her throat when she realized what her husband was really asking. No, not in that way, Sakura replied, placing her head in her hand and giving a curt laugh. Is that what all this was about? Is that why you? No, Sai growled, pursing his lips and quickly shaking his head. He loves you. What? Sakura asked. He loves you, her husband repeated. Do you love him? Sakura sighed, smiling up at her husband's pouting face. No, I don't love Sasuke. She giggled when Sai's rigid form eased and he let out a strangled relieved breath. I love you. Are you sure? The artist questioned. Yes, Sakura laughed, wrapping her arms around her husband's waist and resting her chin on his chest. I only love you. Sai hummed, slowly stretching his mouth into a smile. I didn't think he'd say anything after. What? Sai growled. What happened? What did he? Calm down, Sai. Sakura grumbled. He was looking at our pictures in the living room and, I don't know, I guess he wanted to tell me something but what? Sai frantically asked. What did you say to him? Sakura sighed, almost relishing in her usually aloof husband's possessiveness. I told him that I only wanted to be a team again, nothing else. I see. Sai slowly smirked. So, was he angry? Sakura laughed, burying her face into this chest. Stop it. I just wanted to know. Sai defended, wrapping his arms around his wife's upper back. Sakura giggled. Do you really doubt me that much? No, Sai quickly stammered, trying to hide his jealousy. I was just. I love you more than anything, Sakura confessed, widely grinning up at her husband's cool eyes. Well, maybe Seiha more than you, but. I get it, Sakura. Sai laughed, dipping his head to rest his forehead on his wife's shoulder. I'm sorry. Sakura smiled, brushing her lips against her husband's neck, soothing the skin between her teeth and giving it a light nibble. Do you love me? Yes, Sai moaned. Sakura smirked into his skin and quickly ran her hands under Sai's shirt, pressing her nimble fingers to his skin. I love you, her husband moaned again, trying to press his body further against his wife's. Really? Sakura smirked, nipping at the corner of his jaw. Yes, Sai breathed. Sakura sensually laughed. I don't believe you. Is that so? Sai smirked, running his hands down his wife's back. Well then, he smiled deviously as his hands grabbed her rear and hoisted her up on his hips, with her legs wrapping around his waist. I guess I'll have to show you. Sakura lowly laughed and pressed her lips to her husband's, gasping when he pressed her lower body closer to his with a jerk of her hips and pushed his tongue into her mouth. He pulled away from her lips and smirked at his lusting wife, smiling mischievously and quickly making his way to their bedroom. So, a little lime but, since most people don't like Sai. I don't know why because, I think he is funny. Sasuke really steps in it this time. First Naruto, then Kakashi and Yamato, and then Sai. Wow. Bad luck or what? Don't worry. Things will end well for everyone, just give it time. Slivia. OUT.